Australia needs to spend on infrastructure. Let's have a look. Good morning, everyone. I'm Florian Heise, and welcome to another episode of Heise Says. I've got my morning stein of coffee, and I thought we'd have a look at this article about infrastructure spending in Australia, particularly because I looked at just our dam and potable water supply in Australia and how it hasn't kept up to pace with our population growth. I know people have told me and left in the comments that I didn't factor in all the desalination plants, mainly because that's a really energy-intensive way to get water, and I don't want us to be depending on that technology. Why aren't the greenies getting worried about that? But then again, they probably don't want us to use water because it's bad for the environment to drink. So, let's have a look at this. Infrastructure Australia says roads and transport must catch up to keep pace with population. Okay, roads, transportation are always traditional ways of investing to stimulate the economy. I'm trying to find some information on the actual payback, the effectiveness of this investment in roads now as opposed to the past. The cost of congested roads and overcrowded public transport systems will double unless governments do more than just play catch-up on transport projects, Australia's infrastructure advisory body has warned. Infrastructure Australia, known as IA, said services were coming under unprecedented pressure, and the current boom in construction projects needed to become the new normal to keep pace with population growth and changing consumer demands. Well, yeah, population growth has been insane. It's gone up 25% since 2000. 25%. And most of that has just been through immigration, so that's good coffee. It means you're getting children in. Oh no, it means you're not getting, through the normal life cycle of growth. It's much greater intensity, much faster. The current infrastructure program must do more than plug the immediate funding grab. Infrastructure Australia CEO Romley Madhu said, as she released an audit of the nation's transport, telecommunications, water, energy, and social infrastructure needs over the next 15 years. I think that might be something I'll read through another time. It needs to deliver long-term changes in the way we plan, fund, and deliver infrastructure. I've mentioned, this must be the new normal if we are to meet the challenges and opportunities ahead. Ms. Madhu said $123 billion worth of construction work had begun since IA's last audit in 2015, with more than $200 billion worth of commitments now in the pipeline. So there you go. That's a lot of infrastructure spending. Isn't the Reserve Bank Governor, Philip Lowe, saying the government has to do even more infrastructure spending? And the issue with these projects is the time lag from implementing them. There's a big time lag. I mean, how many times have you driven up a highway? It just seems to take forever to get any of the work done. So you can't just switch on the tap like that. However, the report found congestion on roads and public transport networks was rising, despite significant investment in Sydney and Melbourne in particular. And the cost to the economy could grow from $19 billion a year in 2016 to nearly $39 billion by 2031 without further spending. Despite their scale, recent investments in transport infrastructure in our fastest growing cities, it's largely played catch-up, rather than providing additional capacity that will support substantial future growth, it said. Well, then what does that tell you? Do we need to slow down the growth of the country? Do we need to allow our immigration numbers to probably peter off until our infrastructure has caught up, rather than risk overheating another sector? There's an idea. The report found Australia's population was becoming increasingly urbanised. That's true, with more Australians moving inner city, and 60% now living in Sydney, Melbourne, Brisbane, or Perth. Go Brisbane. Go Brisbane! I'm surprised we're not the most livable city, but, it's all rigged. So the 70-year dominance of the urban fringe has ended for the East Coast, Ms. Madhu said. Population growth offers enormous economic opportunities, but the risk is our infrastructure fails to keep pace with demand. This obviously impacts productivity, quality of life, and the livability of our cities and regional centres. Yeah, she's made a good point. That's the problem. All of these things need to be kept in balance when you have a significant increase in population growth. understandably, all your infrastructure will feel it. All of it will feel it. I mean, we had issues here where there's more ramping happening in our emergency departments, where patients are being left on the stretchers in the hallways here in Queensland. So Federal Minister for Urban Infrastructure and Population, Alan Tudge, said there was no doubt congestion was an issue in capital cities. This is why this government has cut the migration rate, massively invested in congestion-busting infrastructure, and put a plan in place for Australia's future population, he said. While the congestion model does not take into account our recent significant infrastructure and population measures, it does highlight the importance of continuing our congestion-busting program. Shadow Infrastructure Minister Catherine King said it was a stark reminder of the pressures facing the system, arguing the government was not doing enough to address them. I'm at a very fortunate position in my life now because I no longer experience congestion. We've moved our business home. I've gotten rid of the office. We've shrunk our business down, so it's just me and Rachel. I don't bother with staff anymore. So I literally just walk from the house over there outside to the back to the studio here where I do my work. My congestion is, waiting to get my coffee down the stairs or out of the machine. And occasionally I will have to drive into the city for business or catch the train in for business, and I encounter congestion again. And the sad thing is I've forgotten about it. I'm there sitting at 3 o'clock thinking, what's going on here? What's all this traffic? Has there been an accident? And then I realize it clicks that I'm stuck in traffic. And I remember actually thinking back to how much time we would waste going back and forth to work. I mean, we had our office in a retail complex not too far away, 30 minutes from our house with traffic, which doesn't seem like a lot, but Rachel and I both worked together. We even used to have the kids at the office. And when you get home, you get exhausted. You're tired. No one wants to cook. So you eat garbage. So your diet suffers. So your health suffers. So your stress suffers. All this from congestion. So it's got a lot of flow-on effects. And I wonder if IA are looking at the ongoing health effects of this congestion, not just the economic costs. That would be interesting to see. But let me know in the comments, guys. Are any of you suffering with congestion? I'd like to hear your stories, how you deal with it. The old sitting on the train and doing some work. Now everyone's got their mobile phones. No one has conversations on public transport anymore. People probably think you're weird. So, let me know how you deal with it. Because I don't think it's going to go away no matter what the politicians tell us. Not anytime soon. So at this critical time, back to the article. When economic growth is the slowest it has been in 10 years, wages are stagnant, and living standards are going backwards, Australians are demanding the Morrison government produce a real plan for infrastructure. Capacity to deliver being stretched, order warns. As the federal government faces calls to bring forward infrastructure spending to stimulate the economy, the report warned a growth in so-called mega projects was stretching the capacity of industry and governments to deliver. There's the problem. There is the problem. If you overheat the sector, if you try and do too much to stimulate the economy, we get, I'd say, exactly what has happened in our apartment sector, particularly in Sydney and Melbourne, and in Brisbane as well, though not as much in the media, with regards to an overheating of the economy and, frankly, rush, and a decline in the quality of what's happening. That sector overheats. And that's the problem here, because the capacity of the industry will struggle to meet demand, because they're literally replicating the same issue that's caused this shortfall in infrastructure. If they try, their population growth grew very quick, infrastructure didn't keep up, so they're now trying to rush infrastructure to keep up with the population growth. So you're going to have another shortfall somewhere else. I mean, just look at the NBN guys. Fantastic internet. Boom. Rising demand for new infrastructure services has pushed our infrastructure to be bigger and more complex. At the same time, planning is siloed and poorly integrated. Funding options are underdeveloped, projects face procurement issues, and network maintenance is often an afterthought, it said. Skills and labour shortages also create extra challenges, according to IA's Executive Director of Policy and Research, Peter Calosino. We have a shortage of truck drivers and bus drivers in Australia. We have challenges with getting access to people who are self-certifying engineers, senior engineers. The surveying industry's identified shortages. The rail industry, tunnelling and signalling, electricity linesmen, he said. Well, yes, I was talking to a surveyor the other day, just how hard it is to get staff. So there are constraints with our ability to deliver an elevated level of work. Yeah. Yep. Because what will happen? You'll get less bang for your buck too, because all the costs will go up. If you're under pressure to get all the work done and someone gets you to put a fee in, you put your price up, because sometimes you don't want to do it. But, yeah. The report highlighted a backlog of maintenance that it argued was putting unprecedented pressure on existing infrastructure, such as water pipes. We have a very poor understanding of the quality of our water infrastructure, and as densification occurs, pressure grows, and of course the system will eventually break, he said. It also criticized a lack of proper engagement with local residents and businesses, estimating $20 billion worth of infrastructure projects have been delayed, cancelled, or mothballs over the past 10 years due to community opposition. Well, there you go. And let's have a look. Let's have a look at Infrastructure Australia, what we do. So, Infrastructure Australia is the nation's independent infrastructure advisor. We provide research and advice to governments, industry, and the community on the infrastructure investments and reforms that will benefit all Australians. So, this is their organisation. We can see a bit more about them. I'll link to it in the references if you want to have a look, learn more a bit about them, some of the projects. And I think we'll get into this in greater detail in another video. But for now, everyone, what do you think? I'd like to see some more infrastructure investments into our potable water supply, more dam storage, more looking at how a greater portion of Australia can be used to produce foodstuffs for the growing global population. That would be interesting to see. We are let's have a look. How are we sitting for our food production? 2% of our export is wheat. 2% of our export is wheat. Wine, we've got a decent percentage. But you can't grow it everywhere. So, there's opportunities here to grow these sectors of the economy with infrastructure spending. It'll be interesting to see what happens. Anyway, guys, let me know your opinions. Let me know how you deal with congestion, and I will see you all again later today. Take care.